changes the way your brain rewires itself. It's not just psychology, it's neurobiology. And in just 3 days, you can start to reshape your internal landscape. What if I told you that your internal dialogue, the words you use with yourself, has a direct and measurable impact on your neurochemistry, that it affects your levels of dopamine, adrenaline, and even GABA, the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter in your brain? For 3 days, I want you to run an experiment. This is not positive thinking. This is self-directed neuroplasticity. When you deliberately change your inner language, you're tapping into the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate, and the insula, areas of the brain responsible for self-awareness, emotional regulation, and motivation. What we say to ourselves, especially under stress, can either spiral us into a fight or flight loop or activate calm, clarity, and focus. So here's the protocol. For the next 3 days, I want you to do 3 things. Speak to yourself in the second person. Say, you've got this, not I've got this. Studies show that this shifts your brain out of ego-based self-critique and into coaching mode. You become your own guide, not your own critic. Start your morning with identity statements, not goals. Say, you are someone who keeps promises to yourself, not I will go to the gym. Identity is sticky. It wires deeper into your neural circuitry than intention. Catch negative self-talk and label it. Say, that's a thought, not a fact. This activates your prefrontal cortex and gives you distance from rumination. This isn't motivational fluff, it's neuroscience. The brain listens, the body responds. And after 3 days, just 3, you'll begin to feel the shift, less reactivity, more clarity, more energy. You'll start to become the voice you needed to hear. When most people engage in internal dialogue, they default to first-person language. I'm anxious, I can't do this, or I need to be better. While this might feel natural, studies in cognitive neuroscience and sports psychology reveal that this internal narrative style is actually limiting, especially under conditions of stress or high cognitive load. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Research conducted at the University of Michigan and other neuroscience labs shows that shifting to second-person self-talk using you instead of I creates a psychological buffer.
How interesting. Hey, it's pretty crazy. Just a slight shift like that makes such a big difference. But what I'll do is I will post that for you guys in school. Could even be a really cool challenge that we do, like a 3-day challenge together as a group. Kind of, if you are struggling with self-talk, maybe you have a little bit of resistance against believing. A lot of people say, oh, when I'm like, I'm going to be rich, or trying to do these affirmations or self-talk, that seems like there's a little bit of friction there. This might be a really good activity for you to go through and do, and almost talk to yourself as that third person point of view, right? Like, you've got this, you can do this, you're, just changing that perspective. Okay, so today's mindset course, I think, is going to be really powerful, considering that we are creeping on closer to halfway through the year. And I feel like this is going to help a lot of you kind of have a light bulb moment and help you kind of take the action. A lot of what I speak about is all internal, right? Getting you to reprogram the subconscious brain, getting you to a lot of the internal shifts. So today I'm actually going to talk about from dreaming to doing. Okay, that's what my call is going to be on today, is how do we stop you from holding yourself back from procrastination and going, I'll do this later, right? I know that this was such a big part of the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey on how I could continue to shift up the gears and really build momentum from stopping the delayed process. So hopefully what I'm going to talk a lot on today is going to get you guys to be inspired, but also give you the tools to stop living lives of later on. Okay. So if we think about the word later, it really becomes the thief of your dreams. You know, it seems innocent, right? And it makes you feel comfortable in that moment when you get inspired or you know what you should be doing, but you're like, oh, I'll just do that later, or I'll just put it off, or I'm busy, that can wait. I know that that was a big part of my journey, and it was like wanting to feel comfortable because you're like, oh, if I have to actually take the action to do the thing right now, that's going to require growth. That's going to have to require effort. That's going to require me to drop what I'm doing now and do something that puts me in a more vulnerable position, right? But if we don't do this, if we don't understand the priority of not putting your dreams off, not putting your goals, not seeking delayed gratification, and actually taking the action while we're doing the reprogramming work, then our dreams will die, right? It's like if we think about it, our goals and our dreams and our big ambitions and our future version self, it doesn't just happen in one moment in terms of you either make it or you don't. It's a small compound of the small steps that add up. And both directions matter, right? Like you're either taking small compounding movements towards your future version self, or you're not doing it. And slowly over time, you lose them through both ends of the spectrum, right? You're either taking small action, you're pushing, you're growing, you're getting uncomfortable, you're doing the things that causes friction time sometimes because we're growing, or you're delaying them by going, I'll do that later, or that's not important today, or it's okay if I don't do this, or we let it kind of slip out of our fingertips, and before we know it, 6 months, a year's gone past, and we're like, oh my goodness, I'm no further ahead. Actually, I'm further behind than what I thought. And slowly over time, we just kind of let go of our goals and dreams through it happening slowly, where we're not actually understanding the power of those small decisions. Okay. So I want to know how many of you have used later on for it to never happen? How many of you gone, I'll do this later, I'll do that later, to then go, later never came? It's okay to be vulnerable and truthful. 222, that was me for a big part of my life, right? I was like, I'll do that later, or I'll do that, or that doesn't matter too much right now, or I'm busy, or I don't have the time, or yeah, a lot of you, too often, exactly, like a lot of us are doing this, not realizing, what a big deal this is. So I think based upon, thank you for those of you who are being truthful and honest. And even if for some of you, yeah, starting tomorrow, all the things, right? I think we've all done it before, but hopefully after today's call, you'll have that aha moment of, wow, this actually matters. This is really important. I'm going to give you some tools to get rid of the overwhelm of how you can actually just do it. Let's just change it up and just do it, and not let our goals and dreams die or slip through the cracks, right? Slip through the fingertips of later, and then everything else happens in life and we never actually reach our goals. Okay? So if we think about this, time is going to pass anyway. Okay? And if we think about it from the perspective of time doesn't slow down, we do, right? Like we today, right now, in this very moment, like you are this is the youngest you're ever going to be going forward. You're the youngest version of yourself today. You're the most excited version of yourself today. Like you are here for a reason. Today matters, right? If we keep saying later on, well, later on in life, when is later on? Is it tomorrow? Is it next year? Is it 10 years from now? Like a lot of the time when we're put inside of these environments for growth, for bringing our goals into fruition, it's like if we're not the versions of ourselves, we've got to be that version of ourselves today. Because even next week, if you haven't acted upon your inspirations, if you haven't acted upon what you need to do to change your life, next week your enthusiasm wears off. Next week, you're not the version of self that needed to act to actually bring in the fruits of your labor. Okay, and I'm going to show you how even little things matter. Okay, so if we think about this in terms of later on, why do we say that? So first of all, let's go into why do we use this as a tool and how we think it's actually benefiting us, but it's not. It's actually weakening us. So if we can actually understand why we do this, then next time we go to do it, we actually go, oh, you're playing tricks on me. You're making me think that it's the right thing for me, but it's not. So let's think about this on later on makes us feel comfortable. It makes us feel safe. Okay, when we say later on, it almost puts the pressure off us from making ourselves vulnerable, right? Because if we were to actually do the thing, then we go into the cycle of, oh, if we actually have to do the thing, what could go wrong when we do the thing? What are all the things that we may experience if we actually take action right now? So our brains almost go into like protective mechanism of, well, if I actually have to take action right now on the thing that is in my brain, like, oh, if I did this, this would be really beneficial. Or man, I need to learn this, or I need to grow here or do this. Like we get these downloads, we get these moments of inspiration, or we know what we need to do. Like our intuition is telling us, hey, Gemma, you better go do that thing you've been saying you've been doing. Like it's reminding us, you said you want to be successful. Okay, you know what you got to do to bring on the success. But then we go, oh, later. I'll do that later. Because what it's almost activating inside of us is it's like, I want to be safe. Okay, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. And then sometimes even deeper than that, it's almost like we are afraid of what may happen if we actually have to go and take the action. Yeah, trauma response, all of those things. So I'm going to go deeper into that in the call, but that is a lot of the time like what it comes down to is it's not the fact that we don't want to do the things. Like, of course we do. We all know that's what's going to change our lives. But deeper down in that, we're actually scared of what's going to happen if we do have to take the action. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But the scariest part of that, if we don't understand how to actually truly overcome this, what happens is we end up literally creating an entire life on later on because it's so easy. Later on, I can do the exercise. Later on, I'll spend time with my kids and give them my attention. Oh, later on, I'll go and study. Oh, it's okay if I skip today, right? And then next thing you know, it's like we wake up and we're like, wow, our whole lives have been based on the excuse of later on, I'll do this, later on, later on, later on, to never do it. And then every time we say that, what happens? We're strengthening that muscle. Okay. Every time we push something out, every time we don't go into the depths of the scariness, we don't actually be vulnerable, we don't get uncomfortable, we don't grow, and we just use the excuse of later on, our entire lives just become later on and it never happens, right? And then it's almost like this vicious cycle of every time we say that, it becomes easier and easier to use the same excuse. It's almost like a muscle that's getting strengthened. So we don't even think that it's an issue. It just becomes autopilot, right? Yes, easy to 5 years later on, you're in exactly the same spot. Exactly. And that's why I'm like, this is such an important thing to talk about today. Again, I want you to know it's not too late, right? I think that's the beautiful thing is this call was made for you today so that you don't live a life of regret. Okay, I'm genuinely here today going to show you how you can totally change your life from this bit of advice I'm going to speak on today. You've got to ask yourself, what's the cost? So most people assess cost with what could go wrong, right? It's almost like what could go wrong is I fail, it doesn't work out, I look stupid, right? All these things that is the cost of what could happen if I actually do put in the effort, right? Kind of crazy. A study that they did at Harvard, which is pretty crazy. It's the longest study that's ever gone on, and it's still going on today. And they wanted to find out what's happiness, right? Like, what have they found is the biggest form of happiness, where they've followed people throughout their entire lives, right? And the crazy thing is, what they found that regret was the most painful experience to live with later on in life. So they followed people throughout their entire lives and wanted to see what brought them happiness, what didn't. And what they found consistently over and over and over was the most painful part at end of people's lives were the regret of not doing the things that they wanted to do. Right? And so the whole purpose of this call is like, I don't want you guys at the end of your lives to be filled with regret. I don't want you to be left with that pain. I want you, in every single opportunity of your life, you're maximizing it to the fullest, and you're like, you never regret. You took all the opportunities, you maximized every container you were in, and you transformed your lives. And at the end of it, you're like, I don't have any regret, because I just went all in and I lived life to the fullest. Okay. And that is, I think, at the end of the day, what brings ultimate happiness is knowing that you lived a beautiful, full life. And I know that each and every single one of you are go-getters. You wouldn't be here if you weren't, right? So you already are maximizing life. I'm just showing you how to really push that even further and truly, truly make the most of it, right? And we think about it from that sense that it's not the failure that you will regret. It's the regret is in the inaction. Okay, so many people always think that it's going to be, what if this doesn't work out? What if I embarrass myself? What if, and it's like, yes, okay, what if? But the regret of not trying actually hurts more than trying. Okay, so anytime you have these moments where you think to yourself, oh no, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this is going to do? What if this is going to happen to me? What if I look stupid? What if I don't get it? What if I'm not smart enough? All the what ifs. Just think to yourself, okay, if I don't actually do this, if I don't actually give this my all, I'm going to regret it more than looking stupid, or not understanding, or being uncomfortable, or being vulnerable, or having to grow, or having to change my perspective on something, or it taking me longer than somebody else. Like, whatever your biggest insecurity is, and that pain that you may be feeling as you're growing through this journey, just know that that discomfort you feel right now actually is not that bad. You not doing the thing and you waking up in a year or two having done nothing because you were scared of the growth is going to hurt you more. You're going to have more pain and discomfort from the regret of not maximizing this opportunity than you are with the little bit of discomfort you may be feeling right now while you're experiencing growing pains. Okay, so understand that. So when you feel those feelings, you remind yourself, this is just growth, right? I'm experiencing growth pains. This is good. I'd rather feel this than feel regret in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 from not actually taking the action, right? So it's like, we can pay now in discipline, or we can pay later in regret. It's one of the two, right? You're either disciplined enough to take the action to change your life, right? Or you pay in regret through not taking any action at all, or building our entire lives on regret, right? It's those kind of powerful aha moments of like, oh, sometimes feel like a slap in the face, but sometimes what we need to have that light bulb moment of, okay, Gemma, I'm ready to actually change my life, right? This was the biggest lesson. I think that truly, 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 I had to hear it multiple times. So maybe you've heard this a few times, maybe you haven't. I will continue to say this because it's like this was that real moment for me that the more I ingrained this into my brain, the sooner I could actually see success because our natural chemistry is almost designed for instant gratification, right? We instantly want to feel good. We instantly want that dopamine fix. We instantly want that like reward centers to go off in our brain, right? But instantly good now may weaken you in the long term. Okay, let's really think about this. If we think about this in multiple areas of our lives, like scrolling instead of learning, right? If we think about this even in our health sector, it's like meal prepping sucks in the moment, but the next day you wake up and you're on the go and food's already prepped for you, you thank yourself. You're like, heck yes, thank you, Gemma, for prepping those meals on Sunday or at least going grocery shopping so that there's good options around. I am now grateful for that today. That sucked on Sunday when I could have watched TV or I could have just scrolled or I could have just whatever we wanted to do. But it was almost like delayed that gratification literally served me all week long, right? So it's like, what things are we doing that feels good in the moment, but actually in the long term are causing us to not hit our goals? It's like what areas are we actually setting up for sabotage versus success? Right? So you almost need to take note in your life. It's like, what areas in your life do you know that you're like, okay, I could be swapping some things around. Like, am I sitting on social media? Sometimes when we get our phone stats back and it's like, it tells you where all your time's been, and you're like, okay, I know where I need to be. I could cut back on some areas and up other areas in my life, right? I think that's such a powerful thing to think about. It's like, where is my time going? Where am I leeching a lot of it? And it's like, we want to be well-rounded. So yeah, there's time for scrolling and yeah, there's time for just lazing about, but I think it's about balance, right? It's about where our time goes, it's going to grow. And so what areas in our lives do we want to grow and become better at? And if we know where those areas are, then let's take from the areas that aren't serving us and let's put some in those areas that will be. Okay. So the opposite, if we think about it, it's like the opposite is what we want to train our brains into seeking. Okay. So it's almost like we want to be going, okay, I know that if I spend time and effort here, I know I need to do it. So who here, the things you should be doing to bring success? Drop some 222s in the chat if you know what you should be doing. And if you don't know what you should be doing, drop some 111s. I kind of just want to see where everybody's at in terms of like, do you know what your action steps should be? Do you know where you should be giving your time? Do you know what you should be doing daily? Okay, majority of people are at twos. I've seen a little bit of ones, but majority of people know the steps that they should be doing. They know what will bring them success. Okay, a little bit of both. Okay, cool. I can go over a couple of things that I think is really good for like bringing in your success, but I think a lot of it's like being on these calls, it's setting the trades, it's maximizing the most out of your container, right? What you have here. Are you reading the books? Are you listening to the books? Are you posting your questions? Are you posting your charts? Are you turning up? Are you doing the mindset work? Are you doing the money subconscious and reprogramming work? Like, are you truly maximizing the space that you're in? Or are you being a little bit of like a hermit where you're like, okay, like kind of sometimes I come out and I grab a couple of things and I just go back into my shell. That's fine. It's like, cool. We sometimes need to also have that space and that internal like processing. But also like we really actually want to make the most of the containers that we're in, really utilizing what we have. Okay. So if we think about this from, if we think about, like I said to you guys, it's like, if we don't take the action. Now, for me, at the beginning of my journey, I was always comparing the lesson to the failure that might come, the action that would happen that might create the failure, right? Instead of the regret. And I think the thing is, eventually, you felt regret enough times to know that that feels more painful than the discomfort of what taking the action might bring to you. Okay, so eventually I got to the point where I'm like, I'm just sick of not having the results. I better up the action while the mindset, so it's both, up the action and back it by the mindset belief. I genuinely think that those things go hand in hand. It's like, take the action, that feels scary, that feels uncomfortable, I want to retract, but then I back it with the mindset belief. I back it with the subconscious reprogramming it. I back it with stepping into my future version self. I back it in the confidence knowing that I'm capable. And then they marry up and it feels good. So what used to bring you discomfort, what used to feel scary, backed with the mindset, eventually but becomes safe, right? Drop some 222s if in the past something that used to scare you now doesn't. It's like, oh, it's easy to do that now, where once upon a time it used to be so scary, right? You used to have a lot of fear around it. Exactly. So that's a beautiful example of you being disciplined enough to take the action, right? It's like your intuition told you, you got to take action in this area. And then a part of you was like, that is scary. And you're like, yeah, I know. But if you want a different life, you got to take the action. And you're like, okay, I take the action. And then you backed it with the mindset and the belief that you are capable of doing the thing that you said you were going to do. And through the repetition of doing it over and over and over, what happened? You regulated. It became comfortable. You'd done it enough times that it was no longer scary. Or you realized, over time, this actually feels good, right? So you've got to ask yourself that, what version of you, if you think about this, in 10 years' time, 5 years' time, 2 years' time, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're either going to meet your future version self, or it's going to reflect back to you. If we think about time as a mirror, what does it do? Time's going to pass. Time doesn't stop. But what it does is time reflects back to us what we did with it. And so if you look at yourself in the mirror in 2 years' time, are you going to look at yourself with confidence going, I've met my future version self. I've made it. I'm so proud of you. Well done. Or is it going to reflect back to you the regrets, the indecision, the scaredness, the doubt, the hesitation? Because either one of those people are going to be looking back at you in the mirror. And I really want each and every single one of you to literally look back and go, heck yes, I met the version of myself that I was creating all along, right? Not the scared version, but the version who I knew I was becoming, even when it was scary. Even when I didn't feel 100% confident all the time, I still took the action regardless. I used the tools that Gemma taught me. And now that I look at myself, I am so proud because I knew I maximized every single opportunity that I could. Okay. Really, really, really powerful. Okay. If you think about this as well, there's so many ways to look at this perspective. I'm going to give you one more. It's like, if you look at your life and time passing, it's a scoreboard, right? Think about the scoreboard. It's like you're either winning or you're losing. And so what tally is being made up? The later on, the procrastination, the doubt, the fear, the hesitation, like what's being stacked up on your tally board. That's going to give you a good example of what's going to happen in your future. If we're flexing the muscle of procrastinating, of later, of comparison, of stress, of fear, of scarcity, of doubt, of whatever? Or are we flexing the muscle of just taking the action, of building confidence along the way, of letting go of our fears through actually taking the action? Think about this. How does something become comfortable? Through the repetition of that thing. How does something become easy? Through the repetition of the thing. You see, Gemma, when I first started, I thought, oh, it should just naturally come to me. It should just be like super easy. And if I don't get it, then I'm not smart enough to understand it. And then I came to realize, oh no, successful people actually just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over until it becomes their normal, until success unfolds, right? And so it's like, if we think about that tally board of life, the scoreboard of life, it's like, if we were to tally up, which way is it going? Are we tallying up the later ons, the fears, or are we actually tallying up the action we're taking, the breakthroughs we're experiencing, the confidence we're building in ourselves, the trust we're building in ourselves, right? We say we're going to do the thing, we actually go and do the thing, right? So it's like almost like having that hard realization where you can sit down in your life and almost brainstorm, wow, if I look at my days, if I look at my weeks, if I look at my months, what am I giving? What do I think is happening right now? What's being tallied up more? What's the scoreboard? Is it looking like it's favorable? Is it looking like it's actually is the odds going to stack in my favor? Or am I actually already setting myself up for success? You know, such a powerful thing to think about. Am I tallying wins versus losses? In terms of I'm talking about like emotional, like action or inaction, doing something or not doing something, right? Like turning up to these calls, boom, you can put a tally in success, right? It's like putting a tally on for placing your trades, asking a question, like all these things, reading the books, turning up, back testing, all these things. It's like those are all tallying things for success, right? Versus not taking the action, versus procrastinating, versus beating yourself up, versus all the things that we know are not serving us for the long term. Right. And if we think about this, it's quite a crazy thing. Another experiment that they did with kids is, have you guys ever heard of the marshmallow experiment? Sorry. Drop yes or no in the chat if you have or if you haven't. It was kind of an interesting experiment that they did with kids. And they gave the kids a marshmallow. And so some of you have, some of you haven't. I'll just explain it because I think it's kind of cool in this scenario. Is they gave the kids a marshmallow and they gave them all one and said, okay, you can eat it now if you want to. That's totally fine. But in 15 minutes, for those of you who don't eat the marshmallow, when we're back, we will give you another one. So you will actually get two, but you've got to wait the 15 minutes. And so when they came back in 15 minutes, a lot of the kids ate that marshmallow. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait the 15 minutes. They were so excited. They needed to eat that marshmallow. And there was a select few of those kids who didn't, and they got two marshmallows. And they actually followed those kids through their lives and found that the kids that waited and got the second marshmallow actually did significantly well in comparison to the peers inside of the study. They were more well educated, they were happier, they lived a more fuller life. And it was almost that same concept as this. It was the delayed gratification. It was like, I could actually eat that marshmallow right now, or I could wait the 15 minutes and get two. And so I almost want you guys to think about that in life. It's like, if I don't take the action now, I could just scroll. I could just do all the things that bring me the joy right now, that doesn't cause me to grow, that doesn't push me out of my comfort zone, that you could do all those things and eat your marshmallow now, or you could grow You could take the action. You could do the things you know you need to do to then, meet yourself a year down the track or 6 months down the track and have double of what you can have. Like, have the time freedom, have the financial freedom, have more options, be able to do more with your life. And so anytime we want to procrastinate, anytime we think it's just easier to put it off, it's almost like you want to think about this marshmallow experiment. It's like, I could just do nothing. That's easy. That's comfortable, right? I could say later on, that would be eating the marshmallow now. Or I could push through this friction and know that if I do that, I have the potential of a completely different life. Right? I can sit in the abundance of the manifestation through taking the action, even when there's friction. Okay? Kind of crazy to think about that in life. It's like we can either have this be our best friends or our worst enemy. We just have to decide how we are actually going to process this information, right? And I know for me, it was almost like a lot of the time I would, a lot of us live busy lives. And so saying later becomes easy because there's so many things that we need to do in our lives. Or sometimes when we have that moment of like, I should be doing this, or I need to do that, or it's like you get these almost like signals of what your body's trying to tell you what you need to do to see success. But then you say later because you're like, I don't have enough. Sometimes I used to think I had to do so much. So I'd be like, I'll do it later because I don't have enough time to do it now, right? Like drop some 222s if time is like a big, almost like obstacle that you find comes up when it comes to you actually taking the action. I know that was almost like a sabotage for me, as I'd always be like, I'll do it later because I don't have an hour right now, or I don't have this right now. So later became the thing that I used to use as an excuse because I felt like I never had enough time to actually do the things that I know I needed to do. Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of use that, and it's almost like a sabotage pattern, right? If we think about it. But what I started doing was I started realizing that starting is the most important thing. And so it was like, okay, like I said to a lot of you, I actually set timers for the things that I know I have to do, right? So it's like when it's time to trade, there's an alarm goes off, there's no excuse, I place my trades, right? Reading my book, it was like, okay, maybe today I get 1 page in or I get 1 minute in. Other days I might get a full hour. It doesn't matter the duration of the time. It matters that you took the action. Because what muscle that flexed was, instead of it being later on, it was I did the thing. Whether I did it for 1 minute, whether I read 1 page, whether I, whatever it may have been, I went for a walk around the block instead of a long distance. Or all I'm trying to say is in that moment, when you know what you've got to do, go and just do it regardless of the time. If in that day you only do it for a short space of time, it is so much better than not doing it at all. Okay, because you've got to think about this. You're going to do one of the two. You're either going to say later on or you're going to do it. And if we think about what muscle we're flexing here, every time we say later, it's becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. Every time we do the thing, that muscle's becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. And so sometimes at the beginning of the journey, I just did little things. Okay, even if I was like, I'm in such a rush, I set a timer for like 1 minute and I did the thing for a minute. And a lot of the time, guess what happens is the more you flex that muscle and the more you do it, it's like you actually end up making time for it. You end up actually naturally spending longer because initially you think it's going to take you so much longer. And once you start, you're like, oh, that was actually amazing. Oh, I'm going to add that in. Or 1 minute becomes 5 and you're like, oh, I actually had longer than what I thought. Or you started and it became so fun that the things that you were going to do didn't actually matter. You started to realize that this was more of a priority. Like, why did I put this off for so long? Right? So it's like, you've got to flex that muscle. You've got to do it now. If you don't do it now, you're never, ever, ever going to do it. Okay? The only way to flip it is to strengthen the right muscle from taking the right action. Okay? You really, really need to understand the power in this, right? You literally have this one life to live, and this makes or breaks it, right? We always think it's these big things that make or break it, but it's actually these small little action steps that compound into the big things. Okay, the small little successes that we say yes to, the small little disciplines that we put into it, the small little action steps that we take, the little subconscious reprogrammings, the little words that we say, the books that we listen to, the little things we stack up and stack up and stack up, snowball, and they become bigger, and they build power on them, and it just builds momentum, and then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes part of your lifestyle, and then you wake up and you're like, I've created the thing, right? But the opposite is also true. The later on, the procrastinating, the I don't have time for it, I can't do this, all these things also happen, right? So I actually want you guys to do this for me. This is kind of going to be a little bit of homework that I set for you guys. I want you to get a pen and paper, and I want you to write out all your later ons. Okay, what in your life right now? I want you to think about in your health, your wealth, relationships. I want you to write down, what have you been putting off? What are your later ons in your life? What areas in your life have you been sitting in and going, I'll do this later on. Later on, I'll grow in here. Later on, I'll get the books. Later on, I'll prioritize myself. Later on, I will change my programming about money mindset. Later on, later on, later on. Like, we think about multiple areas in our lives. What does that look like? Right? And once you've done that, if you look at all of them combined, once you've listed them all out, I want you to circle which one hurts the most. Out of all the laters on that you have written out, if you look at that page, which later on that you look at hurts you the most? Okay? Because that's going to be your starting point. Okay? That's the weakest muscle that you hold, that's bringing you the most pain in your life. Because if we think about it, the ripple effect also happens, right? One area that's causing a lot of pain through saying later on, through leaving, almost leaches into multiple areas. So if we can start in the area that brings you the most pain and discomfort, right? If we can circle that one, and we know from now on, from today, after this call, that becomes that may be your weakness. How do we get strong? If we think about this in terms of, if I give you an analogy of rehab, like think about it, if you've got an injury, if you have to go see physiotherapists to help you regain strength in an area where there's weakness, they're going to get you to slowly rebuild that connection. They're going to show you exercises. They're going to give you techniques and things to strengthen the ligaments and the muscle and everything surrounding that area so that it doesn't bring you pain. And so what I want you to do is, I'll make a post inside of school, and you can, if you feel comfortable, you can write what area that is for you. And then we can slowly start, when you're scared or whatever it might be to you, saying later on to that area in your life, you're going to start slow. And you're going to start slowly, just taking the action, doing the steps, reprogramming your mind in that area. And you're going to slowly inch your way, and we're going to rebuild, reflex, strengthening muscles in that area of your life, so that you don't put off growth in that sector. So that the discomfort you feel today in that area you won't feel in 6 months to a year. Through us working in this most painful area in your life, you are going to slowly start rebuilding a newfound confidence in that area. You're going to take action, even if it feels scary. You're going to do it maybe one day for 1 minute, just to build a little bit of. Sometimes I always say this to you guys, if you think about it, a lot of the time I say, you've got to go look around for evidence that it's true, right? So for example, if one of the biggest painful areas in your life is money, is wealth, right? I know this kind of was a big sector in my life starting out on my journey. It was the reason why I transformed my life. It was like, man, my life is in this most vulnerable position because I don't have the money to have a choice, right? I am stuck in the position that I'm in. I didn't have choices because I didn't have the resources for options. I was stuck where I was, right? And so if I thought about that, I was like, okay, I need to start slowly taking the action that's going to change this up. It's going to feel uncomfortable. I have to start thinking differently. The same version of me can't create what I've already gotten. I have to think completely differently. So I started gathering evidence, whether that meant I looked around me, what opportunities there was. I proved to myself that I could increase my wealth. I looked for evidence of that. I backed it. I started to slowly inch my way, whether I got evidence from other people, whether I got inspiration, then I put in the action steps slowly over time. Like, even when I didn't feel like it was working, even when I doubted the process, I still kept taking just the next step, the next step, the next little thing. I kept myself empowered throughout the process. It's like you just have to like bite-sized pieces in whatever sector you're in. And once you guys post, I can also then give you some resources and give you some links and give you some different things that's going to help you inchworm your way out of the pain and the discomfort you're feeling today. Stop the procrastination in that area of your life. Slowly start almost like flexing a completely different muscle group, so that at first it's going to feel uncomfortable. You've got to be able to be vulnerable. You've got to be able to take the action. If I give you the tools, you've got to listen to them. You've got to actually act upon it, right? Whether it's for 1 minute, whether it's for 5 minutes, whether it's for an hour, whether it's for 30 minutes, I don't care. Just do the thing. That's what matters, right? So instead of saying later, you go, Gemma's my head. She's saying, I got to do it, right? That's almost like what I want you guys to do. A lot of the time, if you're anything like me, it's like I needed the hair tie trick, right? I needed to be able to physically have something tangible that held me accountable. You know how I almost gave you guys that trick of having the hair tie on your wrist, and every time you said something negative to yourself, you had to put it on the other side. It was almost like that physical act of doing that made you realize how much you actually the awareness of self-sabotage that you were creating. And so maybe in this situation, if you're like that, you might want to put the hair tie back on your wrist and say, every time you say to yourself, I'm going to do it later in that department, you flick it to the other wrist and you go, no, Gemma's saying I got to do it now. So I go and do it. I don't care if it's 30 seconds. I don't care if it's a minute. I don't care if you give me 5 minutes on it. It's how I'm going to keep you accountable. And I think we'll do that in that post. It's like, do the hair tie or set the alarm or habit stack it, right? While you're brushing your teeth, you start reprogramming your mind. While you're brushing your teeth, I don't know, whatever area in your life that's causing you the most pain from later on, it's like we slowly start flexing a new muscle. We don't say later, we do. We don't say later, we do. And we actually physically keep ourselves accountable. And at first, you have to track it. At first, it feels weird. At first, it feels like a chore. At first, it's that marshmallow effect. Okay, I could eat it now, but I'm going to wait for double. I could have it now, but I want more for my life. It's that us just becoming aware of that. And after 30 days and after 60 days, now we're flexing that muscle enough for it to start to feel normal, start to feel comfortable, start expanding the time we're doing it for, start actually wanting to do it, start actually seeing the benefits of making it a priority, start to see the growth we're having, start to actually want to do it, start to actually feel weird if you don't do it, right? Can we see how we slowly become the new versions of ourselves through these little micro steps? It's like slowly we're carving out this new perception of ourselves. Slowly, we actually believe the things that we're speaking out because we back it by action, right? Slowly, confidence muscles get formed. Slowly, we start to actually see our realities actually become, our dreams actually become tangible, actual, like life form through the compound of, doing it and not delaying it, not saying later, not experimenting it in real life. Okay, so I'm going to go make a post for you guys. If you want my help, then you can go and post in there and I can start giving you resources. And I can go from there and see how I can actually help you guys in getting rid of the pain that you're currently in and actually building up the strength in the area that is your biggest weakness. And once you do this, I want you to know your lives are going to change so drastically. Okay? So, have an amazing day. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope today's call really helped you guys have a lot of light bulb moments, aha moments, get you thinking differently, and hopefully stop you from sitting in that hamster wheel of procrastination, right? And hopefully give you that little bit of inspiration, motivation to get you to think differently and get you to truly wake up and meet your future version self and not wake up and live a life of regret. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much and see you next week. Bye, everybody.